Good afternoon, turnips. I'm still working on a vlog that should have been posted 3 weeks ago, but it's not ready. Instead, we're gonna do a little mini episode of Try a Chapter and Unhaul because I have 5 subscription books that I could sell for, a nice amount of money. I'm not a scalper, don't worry about it. I just cover my own costs. Those scalpers are dicks. I have 5 books that I want to know if I need to keep them or not. And some of them I'm excited about, some of them I'm not, but I want to give all of them a shot. So we're going to go get those books. I'm going to read the first chapter or so until I have a good idea of if I want to keep it or not. I'm going to grade it on a rubric. I've seen a lot of try chapters, but nobody else grades theirs. So I have that going for me if you like that sort of thing. Then we are going to talk through if I'm going to keep it or not. If it gets a 6 or under, I unhaul. If it gets can't remember if a 6 stays or not. I think a 6 stays, 5 goes. Pretty sure that's it. Anything higher than 5 stays and will be read at some point. But with that said, let's go get the books. And backed by not popular demand at all is my post-it note. I have written down the titles of the books and we're gonna go get them. So let's go. Okay, so here's my list. First up, we have The Bone Raiders, which is a book I have not hauled for you guys yet, but it is the Fairy Loot Epic Fantasy book. And I'm not technically subscribed because I didn't have the money when they offered it to me, but I bought this secondhand off Pango for a very reasonable price, $28 I think I paid for this. This is the first one. Put that right there. Next up, Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil. Where do I have that? I just reorganized everything, remember? And now I don't remember where I put that. Is it over here? I don't think it is. Shit. Is it over here? No. It's not up there. Where did I put it? Sorry, that was really whiny. Oh, it's right there. I just didn't see it. Hold on a sec. It's right. See right? It's right there. Everybody say hi to Pippin. Hi, Pippin. What are you doing? Did mommy have to clean lots of stuff from your butt today when she got home with scissors? Look, it's a very clean tushy now. Look at that. Very fluffy. Very fluffy. Yes. Okay. Hold on. Got it. Pippin, do you like lesbian vampires throughout history? He's like, what? I'd chew this. There's book number 2. It's a very pretty book. I hope I like it. But the last 4 books I've read from her have just not hit. Okay, Gifted and Talented. That's right here. That's easy. Move, girls, move. Oh shoot, I'm in a mess. This one I'm pretty sure is gonna go. I have not liked anything I've read from her, but we'll see. I will give it a shot. I really like the premise. And then we've got Of Jade and Dragons, and the last 2 are right here. So they are right here. This I got over a year ago, I think, in a Lumicrate. And this one came earlier this year, and I've had it on my TBR twice and just not read it. One of those times I had surgery, but the other time I have no excuse. So here are the 5 books I will be testing today. Let's go talk about the rules. Okay, luckily I just reached down there for my little notepad that I use for this, and last time's results are on here, so I have all the questions. So here's how this works. I'm going to ask myself 5 questions about each book after I read them. I will probably read 2 books, and then read the last book on its own. It's going to be a much shorter than when I normally do this, but I might talk more about the books since there are less books to talk about. But I will be significantly less exhausted at the end of this. But here are the 5 questions. Did I like the characters? Did it catch my interest? Did I like the writing style? Vibe check, not a question, but it's fine. And anything worth tabbing? If the answer is yes, I give it a 1 or a 2. If the answer is no, I say 0. At the end, I tally it up, and like I said, if it gets a 6, it stays. If it gets anything 5 or under, it goes. That doesn't mean, like I say this every time, that doesn't mean no to this book forever. It just means no to me owning this book and it taking up space on my shelves. There's always the library There's always gifts in the future if somebody wants to give it to me. There's always changing my mind and buying a used copy. You know, the possibilities are not endless, but they seem like they are. I'm gonna probably just go in order of how they are stacked right now. I'll be honest, the phone and my gimbal are sitting on them, so the angle's gonna change as we go through this video. Of Jade and Dragons and the Court of Bristol, Keats are up first. Gifted and Talented and Bury Our Bones. I always say that, Bury Our Bones. I don't know why my brain wants to do that. Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil, and then last, I will read the Bone Raiders. Pretty sure I'm keeping the Bone Raiders, but we'll see. Never say never, and if I've learned anything from doing this previously, it's that I can definitely be surprised. I'm going to remake my little rubric here and get that ready, and then we're gonna go. Also, I might need to take a dinner break. I have a pizza in my freezer that I want to cook, so we might be eating dinner together, you know, or, you know, I'm eating and you're doing whatever you're doing at your end at whenever you're doing it. I'll see you in a couple minutes. Here we go. First round. We have Of Jade and Dragons by Amber Chen and The Courting of Bristol, Keats by Mary E. Pearson. Let's start with Of Jade and Dragons. First question, did I like the characters? Yes. I did read the first chapter and a half of this one. I was going to read 2 chapters because one wasn't enough, but then the second chapter was really long, and I felt like I got the gist of it after 1.5. So I'm gonna say 1. There's potential here for me to like them more. Nobody really stood out, but I did feel for them because the first chapter of this book is basically her father dies. This is Silkpunk. It takes place in a fantasy world, but it is sort of based on the life of the first emperor of China's wife. I'm intrigued about these characters, but they didn't really do anything super interesting, but I still felt for them because, you know, her father is murdered. That's the inciting incident of the book. And so that causes her to try to figure out why he was murdered and travel to big city where he went to school at this engineers guild and disguise herself and try to figure out what's going on. She hasn't left yet as of when I stopped reading, but I know that's the plot of the book. And I felt for them. So you can't feel for somebody that you don't like at least a little bit. So I'm going to say 1. Did it catch my interest? Yes. I want to know what happens. I don't want to know like, well, no, I'm curious because that's the next question. It did catch my interest. I'm going to say 2. So we're at 3. Did I like the writing style? Yes. So with YA, the writing style is all, like, if the writing style is good, I'm all in on the YA. I can put up with a lot if the writing style is good. And with this, it felt assured. It felt like the author was new at this, but also like has like a raw talent that I could feel coming through. I don't know if this book will necessarily be my favorite. I don't think it will be, but I'm curious about it. And the writing style is part of that. It was a little bit overly descriptive, just a little bit, but what she was describing was interesting. I feel like this author has a really good handle on her world. It really came to life in my head pretty quickly. I will give it a 2. So we're at 5. Vibe check. The vibes are there. Actually, I was picturing like an animated film in my head the whole time. And I was like, this would make a great animated film. I will say 2. And then anything worth tabbing, no. So this is a 7. Good to know. Look how cute these illustrations are. Look at them. Aren't they cute? Also, I feel like I have read a lot of fictional books about like a fictionalized version of the first emperor of China. Like a lot of them. Ken Liu's Dandelion Dynasty is about that. She mentions that in her author's note because being Silkpunk, and he basically invented that subgenre of fantasy. And then like Sharon J. Zhao's books are about that. Both series that they've written, the middle grade one and the young adult one. I feel like people are obsessed with this guy. We're keeping this. Okay, next up was The Courting of Bristol, Keats by Mary E. Pearson. My history with this author is that I've had her first book from her first series on my TBR since it was published and never gotten around to it. I tried to read it on audio a couple of years ago, and I hated the audiobook. So I said, nope, we're gonna wait more time on this one and come back to it when we've forgotten how terrible that audiobook was. But this book did sound really interesting to me. I like Fae Bargains, I like Parallel Worlds, I like Family Secrets, and this has all of that. It is very thick though, and unlike the other book, the writing is pretty small. Just a lot of words. Questions. Did I like the characters? I always say that I didn't not like them, but I didn't really like them either. So I feel like I should give it a 1 because, well, I gave the other one a 1. Maybe I should have given that one a 2. Maybe that one's an 8. And this is a 1. I don't know. You know, I was curious about her. I was curious. I liked certain turns of phrase that maybe were sort of revealing about her personality, Bristol Keats, the main character. So I'll give it a 1. Did it catch my interest? The plot did. It did not catch my emotional interest, which is more important, but I am curious about who this girl's parents were, because the opening, I read the first 2 chapters, which were both very short. The opening chapter is Bristol waking up after a late night at work. She must work as some sort of a service job as a waitress or a hostess or a bartender or something. I think bartender, actually, now that I think about it. There's a bunch of tips on the side of her. Oh boy, there's a dog next door. We have discovered, I think, that Butter does not like dogs because she was hissing and spitting at the dog. Pippin was just up on the window just looking at the dog because he doesn't care one way or the other. He's just curious, and the dog went out the window and scared the crap out of Pippin. What's going on? I think she's got the dog out there trying to teach it to behave because Butter's being very wary. I'm gonna go look, hold on. No, she wasn't doing that. She was just leaving. And Butter was like, that's the lady with the dog. What was I saying? Did it catch my interest? I mean, I'm curious about the premise. That caught my interest, like the blurb, but I don't know if the book itself actually caught my interest all that much. So I guess I'll give it a 1. Did I like the writing style? Not really. It was like one of those ones that feels kind of like molasses to get through, in that it's like overwritten, trying a little bit too hard. Too many images, too many adjectives. Cut some of those adjectives, man. You don't need them all. It's just a distraction. Place them carefully and use them wisely. And this woman does the opposite. She just uses, I mean, I've seen worse examples of that, but there's a lot in here, and it doesn't hurt for length. So it's not like there's not room to cut some of that stuff. I felt like the writing style was affected, is the word I'm going to use. I felt like it didn't feel natural. It felt like it was trying very hard to be beautiful or like imagery. And the problem with that is that the author, I think, doesn't have a handle on her voice. And the tone as a result was very like, is this trying to be funny? Is this trying to be beautiful? Is it trying to be dramatic? It was literally like that. That was the reading experience. And when clarity suffers when you do that. And I kept having to reread parts. The writing style, no, I didn't hate it, but I didn't like it either. It was readable though. So I guess I'll give it another 1. So that's 3 so far. Vibe check. There wasn't much to vibe about in these first 2 chapters. There was potential for vibes. You could tell she was trying pretty hard to get vibes with all those adjectives, but the kind of awkward setup of it, and because the first chapter features Bristol and her younger sister getting a 3rd letter from a mysterious aunt when she knows very well she doesn't have an aunt, because her mother claims that her family is all full of rotten people and never talked about a single one of them. And the father, whose aunt this person is claiming to be, said that he didn't have any family or something like that. I don't remember. So I just read this and it's already falling out of my head. Very pretty book though. Very, very pretty. I'm gonna say no vibes. I didn't vibe with this. I wanted to, but I didn't vibe with it. Anything worth tabbing? No. So that's a 3. Oh no. Oh no. You know what? I said at the beginning of this video, this isn't about me reading the book or not. This is about me keeping the book. And I can tell from the writing style, this is not, even if I finish it and read it and like it somewhat, like give it a 3 or 3.5 or whatever, which is where I feel it's going, best case scenario, I'm not going to keep that. I'm not going to keep it. It's a big book. It takes up a lot of room. I'm very choosy now about what stays, and this is never gonna stay. This is on my TBR. I've already made my TBR for January and February for next year. This is on my TBR for January, but nobody ever said that I couldn't just check out the audiobook from the library, or the regular book for that matter. So I think that's what I've got to do. I mean, my rules that I set up say that that's what I'm doing. This is going. Oh, I just realized I forgot to set up my microphone. Maybe I'll set it up later. I'm gonna go make some pizza now, so that by the time it's done, I can maybe have some while talking about Gifted and Talented and Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil. Be back. Buon appetito. I got a frozen pizza from Connie's. I'd never heard of it before, but I was at Safeway to get stuff for like wraps and stuff and breakfast burritos, and it was on sale, so it's pretty good, even though I burnt it because I was being vain, because I was taking thumbnail pictures and none of them looked good. Anyway, let me take a quick bite and then we'll get to it. It's a sauce. The sauce is really good. I don't like thick, sweet, cloying tomato sauce on pizza. This is perfect. I actually really like that. I need water. All right, speaking of surprises, let's talk about these two books. Got Gifted and Talented by Olivie Blake and Bury Our Bones. See? Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil. Let's go with Gifted and Talented first. This book, I am very shocked to tell you, I didn't hate it. So let's look at the numbers. Did I like the characters? No, but you're not supposed to. More about that later. I liked reading about them, but I didn't like them. Although when somebody makes me laugh, I do kind of like them, even if they're a jerk. I don't know, maybe I did like them, so I don't know. I'm gonna give it a 1. Did it catch my interest? Yes. Surprisingly, interest very much caught, because it capitalized on the premise, which I found so interesting, which is basically this is like magical succession. There's 3 siblings in a family, very wealthy family. CEO of this magical tech corporation. I think is it literally called Magitech? Yeah, Renfair Renfair. I get it, Renfair. Except it's W-R-E-N is their last name. Renfair Magitech. At the very beginning of this book, actually, I didn't get to that part yet, but it's in the blurb, is the dad dies and the 3 siblings, who are all equal parts competitive assholes in different ways, are vying to be the new CEO, the new controller of the company and the money. It opens up with one of the siblings. I have not met the other 2 because I felt like I got enough of a glance at the book to know that I was going to like it. Yes, it caught my interest, 2 right there. So we're at 3. Did I like the writing style? Yes. Oh my God, I could not believe it. And the reason was that it wasn't taking itself too seriously. Previously, my experience with Olivie Blake is that the writing got in the way of the story and the world building and everything else that I enjoy. And here, there was so much. First of all, it seems, even in, I only read like 8 pages, it seems like she has a good handle on her world building, which was one of my problems with the Atlas 6. And it also seems like her characters just leap off the page and they are very voicey. If the characters' voices can distinguish like themselves, like they don't all sound the same, I'm really gonna be happy. But yes, I liked the writing style, 2 stars. In fact, it's the thing that's catching my interest the most. Let me read you. Well, no, this is for later, but spoilers for the last question. Vibe check. Oh my God, the vibes are there. It's just all vibes at this point, 2 stars. Anything worth tabbing? Yes. There was something quotable on every page, but I'm gonna read you the first paragraph. I cannot believe I'm having this reaction. I really did not like the other 3 books that I read from her. Chapter 1, Meredith Wren, a fucking asshole, not that it matters at this stage of the narrative, but it's worth pointing out, sat blinded by the overhead lights from the stage, squinting unflatteringly into the brand new state-of-the-art auditorium that had just been completed on Tyke's unethically verdant campus. Too large a venue for an event of this nature, which would reasonably be attended by only the most ardent of nerds. Well, them and anyone who stood to gain from her success financially. A forum for dorks and despots. Just the first sentence even. Like, Meredith Wren, a fucking asshole. Not that it matters at this stage of the narrative. Just like, I was in from the first sentence. Oh my God, why am I effusing about Olivie Blake? I never thought, this is why you don't, sometimes you gotta, your past impressions are not always right about people and things and books. Yeah, so that was 2 stars. So this is a 9. I thought for sure this would be the one that's going, for sure. And it's not, it's staying, and I'm like super excited to read it now. Then we had Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. I'm less sure about this one. Let's go through it. Did I like the characters? I'm gonna give it a 1 because these all got 1s in their characters because, well, something to do with the writing style, which I'll talk about in a second, but also, I mean, she was 10 years old. One of the main characters, Maria, was who I met in 1592 or something. A mysterious widow comes to town in a pilgrimage, and she's enchanted with her. And then she has a strange encounter with her, and that's when the chapter ends. And then I peeked a little, and it fast forwarded to when Maria's 18, which is the next time. Well, I guess she might have been 8. It's not important. And sees the widow again, who is obviously a vampire. I liked the widow. I did like the widow. The main character, not so sure about yet. She was too unformed. And also the thing with the writing, but I'll talk about that in a sec. Did it catch my interest? Yes, not the plot. Nothing about the plot has caught my interest. It's more that I love historical fantasy, and this, I mean, it's one of the reasons I liked Addie LaRue. I didn't love Addie LaRue, but particularly the parts set in the past were my favorite parts of that book. This is like that. I know it's eventually going to go to the present, but I love historical fiction with fantasy involved. I just love it. I'm going to give it a 1. Did I like the writing style? That's also going to get a 1. Mostly because it's in first person present tense. And I'm just like, why? That nearly always reads as pretentious to me. And V.E. Schwab has a tendency toward pretentious, kind of shallow writing style, in my opinion, that on the surface feels emotional and deep. But if you actually dig into it, there's just not much there, in my opinion. There was some of that here, but also what she was writing about sort of like overcame that. And I was able to forget for little periods of time that I was reading first person present tense, which doesn't always happen. So again, I'm going to give it a 1. Vibe check, 2 for sure. It was all vibes. This was all vibes. Little girl, peasant girl, shoeless, dirty, being told off for doing the things the boys do, being fascinated by a beautiful widow, yearning for the outside world, all that stuff. And then just like the descriptions of the countryside, the Spanish countryside. I think it's Spain. I think that's where she is. Wherever Santo Domingo de la Calzada is. I'm gonna run out of battery. I don't know where that is. I'm guessing Spain, but I don't know for sure. I'll say 2 stars. Good vibes. Anything worth tabbing? Yes. Okay, I'm gonna just read you this whole section. She's come across the widow at dusk-ish, and she is picking like herbs and stuff. She's asking her about being a witch, and then she's like, "Are you a witch?" And then they have a conversation, and then she ends it with, "So you are a witch then," which I thought was cute. And then the widow laughs. She tells her, "Nature gives us what we need. There are teas and tonics for many things," continues the widow, "to shed a fever or ease a cough, to help a woman get with child or get rid of it, to make a man sleep." Maria's gaze drops to the ground between them. She spots another crimson stem, is already reaching down to pull it out when the widow catches her hand, even though they were several strides apart, even though she never saw the widow move. She is there now, a head taller than Maria, one gloved hand circling her wrist. Careful, in nature, beauty is a warning. The pretty ones are often poisonous. I just thought that was a good opening of the book. So that's 2. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm keeping this. I'm gonna eat my pizza and read my final book, and I'll be back. Hello. I've got my microphone now. My gimbal died. That thing needs to be charged a lot. But I have this propped up on some books, and whenever I do that, the sound does suffer. So I did bust this out. Let's talk The Bone Raiders. Wait, I want to switch hands. The Bone Raiders. This is by Jackson Ford. It is an epic fantasy. That's why it was the second book in the Fairy Loot Epic Fantasy subscription. I had high hopes for this, so let's see what happened. First question, did I like the characters? Yes. I don't know very much about them though, because this is very much one of those books that opens with action, and you can sort of glean some character information about them from how they react to situations they are in. But also, even though I read the first 2 chapters, and I did that for a reason which I'll talk about in a second, this was so action focused that both chapters involved the same action sequence, even though it was like 30 pages. Good to know about this book. Very, at least so far, action forward. But the characters, what I saw of them, I liked. The first chapter opens in the POV of not the main character, actually. He is the chieftain of a village on the Tapestry, which is, I think it's like a alternative world Mongolia. Wherever Genghis Khan roamed, you know, that's the environment that we are in. And actually, weirdly, I've never heard the word ger before in my entire life. And it was used in the first chapter of this book to indicate permanent sort of tense in a village. And in Of Jade and Dragons, they were like talking about gers as a living structure. And I've never heard of it before in my life. And 2 books in this video had it. So go figure. But yeah, I did like what I saw of the characters. I just wasn't able to get very much depth because the main character, Soraya, what's her name? Sayana. Sayana is a raider, and she is captured by somebody in this village who like steps on her, and she was scouting for her raiding clan to come and raid this village. That's how they live. They roam around and they raid other people's villages and hard work so they can be free and everyone else has to work. It's pretty exploitative, so I'm pretty sure the author knows that though. But it's a rough environment, and this is, I guess, happening at a time, and I'm not sure if this is historically based or not, but there is a great Khan, and he wants all of the villagers and the villages to stop existing and to move into the central city that he has built to work and build the city. He wants to exploit their labor, and he wants to sow the fields, the previously empty fields, plains, and whatever they're called. I think in the real world they're called steppes, Steppes. I don't know. I read that Genghis Khan book a couple years ago. I don't remember anything about it. What was I saying? I'm sleepy. She's a raider, and she's caught, and she's tied to a pole. And this creature, one of these creatures, comes into the village, eats the chieftain, starts eating a lot of the other villagers while Sayana is tied to a pole. And the whole second chapter is her escaping from that pole. So you see what I mean, where I don't know much about these characters, but it's promising, so I'm going to give it a 1. Did it catch my interest? Yes, because I know from the summary what this book is about is that this raiding clan, who are infamous for being very brutal and very talented, they're called the Rakata. All the other raiding clans aren't to be taken as seriously, I guess, but these dudes are serious, and they're called the Bone Raiders because they keep bones of their enemies and of the animals they eat, and they use them to decorate their clothing. So that's charming. There's lots of bones on this cover and on the under the cover. I haven't hauled this yet, so I haven't showed you guys. See, there's bones. Bones. Very dragon-like, very dinosaur-esque, kind of like crocodilian kind of a thing. Anyway, there's this beast. They're supposed to live only in the mountains, and apparently this one comes down for no reason they can tell, and I think she's about to get the idea that she wants to ride it rather than horses, and supposedly that's going to change the dynamics of everything. That does interest me. The idea of that really interests me, so I'm going to give that a 2. So we're at 3. Did I like the writing style? Yes and no. Yes, in that I always like a conversational style book. It just appeals to me. I like to feel the character's personality come out in their writing style. I like when characters use slang. I like when it's not overly formal or overly poetic. I like a mix of tones. I mean, in a shared voice. If the voice doesn't read as one voice, then that's a problem. I know I said earlier that one of the books was tonally off, the variations, but what I mean by that is that there was no singular voice. The Bristol Keats one, there were so many different tones that it didn't feel like one voice of a writer. This did. This had a very strong voice. But I say no because it does that thing in epic fantasy, secondary world fantasy, that I hate. And he even says in his intro letter and his acknowledgments, I read his acknowledgments, that writing fantasy is very difficult, and I can tell because he doesn't seem to have grasped world building. In his defense, though, he's not the only one who does this. It really bothers me when current day idiom is used in a secondary fantasy world. Like at a certain point, they're speaking English. You have to just accept some of it. But when the phrases are so strong and so strongly connected to current time period that they're basically just speaking current day American English, it just pulls me out real hard. If I'm going to continue in this, which I think I want to, I just need to accept that phrases like pissed me off and what was some other stuff. Let's see if I can just find some by going through it real quick. It's like that time Jen Lyons used "my bad" in Kieran's narrative in the first book of her Chorus of Dragons series, which I'm forgetting the name of right now. Also, this book opens up vulgarly, just like the last book that I liked. I was out taking a piss and I nearly stood on her, which I appreciate. There's a lot of cursing in here, overly, maybe too much. Butter chews so weird. She's over there going, what are you doing? I can't find anything. I know I should have taken note of it. I mean, this part, she just says, "You are so fucked." That's like modern day cursing, you know? I just feel like if you're going to write secondary world fantasy, you need to think about everything to do with, I mean, obviously don't get too wrapped up in the world building to the point where that's all you're doing. But when you're writing a scene and creating, you need to think about making the language as idiom neutral as possible so that this stuff doesn't happen, and then maybe come up with your own idioms. People accept that stuff as long as it's clear in the meaning, you can get the meaning from context. It's way better to do that than it is to do this. I can put up with it, but it's a trend that I really dislike. I've mostly seen it in like romantasy and young adult fantasy, where characters speak. Fourth Wing is a key example, actually, like modern day Americans. And it's like you're in secondary world with fire-breathing lizards, and you're in fake Mongolia, and there's a Khan. You know, this is not appropriate. Anyway, I'm going to give that one 1. Vibe check. The vibes were there. They were very strong. Often, in fact, almost always, if you have a strong voice, you're going to have strong vibes because voice creates vibes. That's just something that I think you can maybe learn, but I think that honestly, like most people just have a talent for it. If they can do it, they can do it. And if they can't, they can't. And he can do that. So you're not going to always like it, but the vibes are there. I liked them. It's just little things that I was getting nitpicky. I'm going to give that a 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're at 5. I just need one more to keep it. And we're going to get it because the next question is anything worth tabbing. Let me find it for you. You'd think I would tab these things that are worth tabbing, but I don't. Found it. So Garrick, the guy from the village who actually, it explains that he wandered, I don't think he's the chieftain. He wandered in as a traveler and then just stayed in exchange for his metalworking skills. I actually think he might be a white guy, judging by his name. And I think somebody said something else about his white skin. I don't know. It's not important. But he's explaining about the situation and why he's having a bad day anyway before the raiders shows up, because somebody has planted a flag called the Khan's Will, and that is basically a summons. So he explains in his head, very sarcastically, what the flag means. That was the point of the banner. And then this is all in italics. Hello, villagers. Those of you who can hold a saber, deliver yourself to military training post haste. Those who can't, deliver yourself to Corcorum, that's the city, and report for work. Those city walls aren't going to build themselves, and that grassland won't become nice ordered rows of crops unless you put your backs into it. I just thought that was the clever way of explaining the attitude and showing his resentment of it at the same time. So I'm going to give that 2 stars. So actually we're at 7. The thing about voicey books also is that they tend to be very quotable. That is that. Okay, so let's go through this. This is actually my most successful try a chapter and unhaul that I've ever done in terms of keeping books. Least successful in getting rid of books, but that's okay because I was hopeful that all of these were going to be something that I was going to enjoy. And luckily, most of them, it seems, I am going to, if, all goes how I feel it's going to go. I'm going to predict my star ratings of these books right now just to see if I'm right. if I ever revisit this in the future, which I think I will, because I had a commenter ask me to do a reading vlog of some of the books that I have featured in these videos. And I've only read a handful. I went through after they commented that and I was like, how many of these have I actually read? It's not a lot. I'm going to do that and I will reference this later. So I'm going to say, if I had to guess, The Bone Raiders, which I'm keeping, and I gave a 7 for this video. The score was a 7. I would say that this will end up being a 4-star read for me. This is one of those cases where maybe when the author gets more used to writing in a different genre, because he's got a handful of books under his belt, but he's never written an epic fantasy before, let alone a fantasy. So he's just diving right into the deep end. My enjoyment level, I would say, was at a 4. Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. This was, what was it? This over here so I don't have to keep looking over my shoulder. I don't think about logistics when I film, if you can tell. It was a 7 also. I think this has the potential to be as high as a 4.5 if I get emotionally involved in it, and as low as a 3.5. So I would say between a 3.5 and a 4.5, because sometimes I get annoyed with V.E. Schwab's overly dramatic, like wallowing in her feelings kind of a thing. I feel like maybe she was an emo kid. Just the fact that she wears black all the time, like that is emblematic of the way her books feel to me most of the time. So if she leans too far into that, it's probably gonna be 3.5. If it's more focused on the character and less of the vibe, I guess, and story, then I think I would give it as high as a 4.5. Most likely it's gonna be a 4 though, but somewhere in that range. Next up was Olivie Blake's Gifted and Talented, the most surprising find of this episode. I gave it a 9 for a score for this video. If I had to guess, I would say this is going to be a 4.5, because it has the potential to be a 5, because I love really strongly voiced books with fun ideas. I only have 10% battery left that explore those ideas in a way that's really good and that has like an emotionally impactful ending. I am skeptical of her ability to deliver that last thing though. I don't know if she can. I've never read an ending of hers before, because I finished the Atlas 6, but the first book in the series, twice actually, and that's not an ending because it's a trilogy, and I only got like 2 chapters into the second book before I DNF'd the series. I also DNF'd Masters of Death, which I thought I was going to love because it seemed like cozy-ish fantasy, but no, I didn't like it. It was just not tonally working for me. But this has the potential to be a 5, but I don't realistically think she's going to get there for me because of my past experiences with her and the fact that she does tend to focus on the writing and the prose of her books and the imagery rather than character. And I need the character and the story to be strong enough to hold up that prose. And so far it is, but this is a long book. Oh, things could change, but I'm guessing 4.5. This is the only book that's going. According to Bristol, Keats got a 3. If I had to guess, this would be a 3 or a 3.5 star book. And I am going to read it in January, but I'm getting rid of this copy. So I'm either going to get it from the library or if there's a good audiobook narrator. Actually, I'm going to look it up right now. The narrator is Brittany Presley. I think I've read a book narrated by her before, but I don't know if I liked it or not. Give me a sec. There are a lot of books on here that I know, but I haven't read any of them by audio. She's very successful. She's clearly a very prolific audiobook narrator, but I have not read. So I'll test some books of hers out. Well, I'll just test this book out. I'm used to when a book is coming out, if I'm deciding if I want to do the audio or not, having to find out who the narrator is and then go to their other audiobooks to see if I'm going to like their stuff. But sometimes if they're really talented, you can't tell what they're going to sound like in a book because they're really good at doing voices and stuff. I would guess this is going to be a 3.5, rounded down to 3. But it might get really good. It might be one of those books where the author, as she gets going and has more substance, sometimes that happens where the authors don't know how to write around a lack of substance because they don't have a huge voice. I feel like at the beginning of a book, voice is the most important thing because there is less substance and less things happening for the most part, unless you're Jackson Ford and you're writing about people tied to a pole surviving off of a giant fire-breathing lizard. I feel like that's what was missing here is the voice. And it was just, I said it already. I don't need to say it again. Sometimes in a book, especially a longer book like this, they can recover it. And when stuff starts happening, I feel like that happened really recently in a book I read in the last few months, where I was going to give a book like a 2.5, 3-star rating, maybe even lower, because the beginning, the book was much, much weaker. And then as the author got going and had actual things to write about, the writing style got better because she was focusing on substance rather than the style. Anyway, I would guess this is a 3, 3.5. And then lastly, we have Of Jade and Dragons. This book got a 7 from me in this video, and I would guess this is going to be a 4-star book. I do not think it's going to get to the level of a 5 just because it's a debut and it was a little bit overwritten. Generally, when things that are overwritten like that, it means the author is still getting a handle on their voice. But it was a very confident voice for a debut book. It just wobbled a little bit every now and then. And I liked the story, and I already had a strong picture of the world and the stakes just from the first 2 chapters. First chapter and a half, rather. So I'm going to guess 4. And that is this video. They're upside down, but I don't care. These are all the books that I read that I tested out in this video. And just because they are all special editions, look at that. That is really pretty, actually. I understand why there are a lot of people who just have bookshelves full of sprayed edges. It's not my thing, but it's very aesthetically pleasing. So yes, I would consider this video a success. Anyway, it's sleepy time. Thanks so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. It really helps me out. And if you don't want to say anything, but you want to let me know that you were here, please leave me, you know what, dealer's choice emoji. I can't think of a single emoji right now. So you get to think of one, and just do whatever your heart tells you to do. And I will see you guys in the next one. Okay, love you, bye.